15 of the world's smartest engineers had tried. 15 brilliant minds, armed with years of study, experience, and confidence. But they all failed. They stared at the machine that wouldn't work, defeated, embarrassed, and silent. Millions of dollars hung in the balance. An entire company's future teetering on collapse. And then, the nanny stepped forward. A woman no one noticed. A woman no one thought capable. 30 seconds later, the impossible was fixed, and the room froze. The CEO, a single father fighting battles no one could see, stood still as his engineers gaped in shock. What he did next would change not only her life but his own, forever. If the story touched your heart, show your love, like, share, and comment your thoughts. Nathaniel Brooks had built his empire from nothing. Once a college dropout working nights at a diner, he had clawed his way into the world of technology, founding Brookstone Innovations, a company known for pushing the boundaries of AI-driven machinery. But while the world called him a genius CEO, Nathaniel carried a private pain no headline could capture. His wife, Claire, had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him to raise his 6-year-old daughter, Emily, alone. Being both a father and a CEO was like balancing on a knife's edge. He spent his days in boardrooms, and his nights trying to braid Emily's hair, read bedtime stories, and chase away her nightmares. Nathaniel knew he couldn't do it all alone. That was why he had hired Mary Collins, a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a calm presence, as Emily's nanny. She wasn't just an employee. She became a quiet anchor in their household, keeping the warmth alive in a home that often felt cold with grief. But Nathaniel never imagined Mary would one day save not only his daughter's smile, but his company's future. The problem began on a stormy Thursday morning. Brookstone had been preparing to unveil a revolutionary energy-saving device that could transform industries worldwide. Investors had poured millions into its development. The launch date was days away, but the prototype, an intricate machine of gears, sensors, and processors, kept failing. Nathaniel had gathered his top 15 engineers into the lab, each more decorated than the last. They tried everything, adjusting circuits, rewriting code, replacing hardware. Hours turned into days. The machine either overheated, jammed, or powered off without warning. Tension thickened. Millions were at stake. Careers hung in the balance. Nathaniel barely slept, torn between the collapsing project and Emily asking at home, "Daddy, why don't you smile anymore?" On the 5th day of failure, Emily grew restless in the office lounge. She tugged on Mary's hand and whispered, "Can we see Daddy?" He looked so sad. Mary agreed and walked her toward the lab, where 15 engineers stood like defeated soldiers. When Emily saw her father with his head buried in his hands, she ran to him. "Daddy," she whispered, "please don't be sad." Mary says sometimes the answer is simpler than it looks. The room chuckled politely, but Mary, watching quietly from the corner, tilted her head at the machine. She wasn't an engineer. She had never even gone to college. But she had grown up helping her father, a small-town mechanic, repair engines with nothing but instinct and patience. She stepped closer, her voice soft yet steady. "Mr. Brooks, may I?" The engineers exchanged looks, some smirking, some offended. Nathaniel raised his tired eyes. "Mary, it's very technical. We've tried everything." She hesitated, then said, "Sometimes when something doesn't work, it's not the big things. It's the smallest piece that everyone overlooks." Against his better judgment, Nathaniel nodded. "Go ahead." Mary leaned over the machine. She didn't fiddle with the wires or rewrite the codes. Instead, she spotted a pressure valve slightly tilted, almost invisible to the untrained eye. With calm hands, she adjusted it, tightened a screw, and reset the power. 30 seconds later, the machine roared to life. Smooth, flawless, perfect. The room froze. 15 engineers stared in disbelief. Nathaniel's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with shock and awe. Emily clapped her little hands and laughed. See, Daddy? Mary fixed it. Nathaniel could barely speak. In 30 seconds, Mary had solved what the brightest minds had failed to fix in weeks. One of the engineers muttered, almost ashamed, We never thought to check that." Nathaniel walked toward Mary, his voice breaking. How did you even know?" She smiled gently. "Machines, children, people, it's often the smallest part that matters most. Ignore it, and everything falls apart. Fix it, and everything runs smoothly again." For the first time in weeks, Nathaniel smiled. A real smile. Not because the machine worked, but because in Mary's words, he heard something deeper. That moment didn't just save a project. It lit a fire Nathaniel thought he had lost. The launch was a success. Investors marveled. News outlets praised Nathaniel and his visionary team. But in every headline, he saw Mary's face in his mind. The quiet hero no one knew about. One evening, after tucking Emily into bed, Nathaniel found Mary in the kitchen washing dishes. "You know," he said softly, "you didn't just fix a machine that day. You reminded me what really matters. Perspective, patience, the little things we overlook." Mary looked down, embarrassed. "I only did what anyone would have done." "No." Nathaniel shook his head firmly. "You did what no one else could." The next morning, in front of his entire staff, Nathaniel announced something shocking. This company was saved by someone who wasn't an engineer, wasn't a designer, and wasn't paid to fix machines. It was saved by Mary Collins, a woman who saw what we all missed. The room erupted in applause, but Mary's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in her life, she was seen, not just as a nanny, but as someone who mattered. Later that night, Nathaniel sat by Emily's bed. She whispered sleepily, "Daddy, are you happy now?" He kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart, because sometimes angels don't come with wings. They come with kind eyes, steady hands, and the courage to see what others can't." And as he turned off the light, Nathaniel realized that his company wasn't the only thing Mary had saved. She had saved him, too. In life, brilliance isn't always measured by titles, degrees, or wealth. Sometimes, the ones overlooked hold the answers we desperately need. All it takes is the courage to notice them,